My name is Logan Davis. I'm 42 years old, a master sergeant in the U.S. Army, stationed out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky. For the last 6 months, I've been deployed in Iraq. Before that, I lived in Boise, Idaho with my wife Rachel, who I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. We were married for 13 years. Had the classic suburban dream, a 2-story home with a white fence, 2 Labradors, and a joint savings account we both contributed to since day one. At least, I thought we both did. That illusion shattered when I opened an email at 4 a.m. local time during a break in the comms tent. Subject: Let's be adults about this. No salutation. No emotion. Just 3 cold, calculated sentences. I've filed for divorce. I've emptied our joint account. Jeremy and I are living in the house now. Please don't make this harder than it has to be. Jeremy. A name that dropped like a live grenade in my gut. I read it twice, then a third time. It felt like something out of a joke. A bad one. My hands were steady. My breathing was calm. I closed the email, powered down the laptop, walked to the wash station, and stood under cold water for 10 minutes. That night, I sent a 1-word reply. Understood. No begging. No swearing. No threats. Because this wasn't the time for noise. It was time to think. My bunkmate, Corporal Dean Hawkins, looked over from his cot as I sat down. You good, Sarge? Yeah, I lied. Just home stuff. He nodded and went back to his paperback. He didn't push. In the Army, we know when to press and when to leave a man to his demons. But I wasn't caught completely off guard. The truth is, I saw it coming. 6 months before deployment, Rachel started changing. Not in big ways. It was in the little things, the kind that add up over time. She'd stop asking about my training schedule. Started staying late at the veterinary clinic where she worked. Her new friend Jeremy was a lab tech there, just another coworker, she claimed. She joined a gym she never seemed to sweat at. Got new clothes. Started locking her phone. Switched our grocery store from Winco to a fancy organic co-op. Still, I didn't accuse her. I didn't snoop or demand answers. That's not who I am. But I wasn't an idiot either. So I started making quiet moves of my own. First, I rented a storage unit across town under my name only. Moved in everything that mattered, my late father's Army medals, my mother's quilt from her childhood, and my birth certificate, military docs, and VA paperwork. Then, I opened a second checking account at a different bank. Transferred 20% of each paycheck automatically. It wasn't much, but enough to give me a soft landing if something ever went wrong. Guess what? Something went very, very wrong. 2 days after that email, I watched my unit load into the Blackhawk, pretending like nothing had changed. But everything had. Rachel had drained $74,000 from our joint account, including the VA supplement I'd sent home last month. All gone. The house? Still under my name, thanks to the VA mortgage. The truck? Also mine, registered to me through a military discount dealership. But Rachel, she had the keys. And now, apparently, she had Jeremy. She wasn't expecting me to do anything. That's where she was wrong. I wasn't going to send some angry email or beg her for an explanation. I wasn't going to confront Jeremy or make threats. No. I've led reconnaissance teams through hostile territory with zero support. If I learned anything from combat, it's that emotions are liabilities. Planning is power. So I made a plan. First step, I contacted my old Army buddy, Victor Grant, now an attorney in Billings, Montana. We hadn't spoken in a year, but when I called and told him the situation, his response was simple. You flying back soon? In 2 weeks. I'm arranging emergency leave. Good. Let's get her legally. Victor wasn't just an attorney, he specialized in VA mortgage disputes, military asset protection, and yes, divorce. He told me what to gather: email copies, banking transactions, property deeds, security camera footage. I still had remote access to the doorbell cam. She hadn't disabled it yet. 2 days later, I checked the feed from the cam. There was Jeremy. Shirtless. Walking my German Shepherd, Rex, wearing my hoodie, my army hoodie, the one from Ranger School. I didn't feel rage. Not really. What I felt was cold. Focused. Controlled. I took screenshots. Logged every date and time. Jeremy stayed overnight at least 4 times that week. I recorded the timestamps. Then I forwarded the security footage to Victor with the subject line, "Let's start the war." Back on base, I filed for emergency family leave. Within 48 hours, it was approved. By the end of the week, I was on a C-17 headed home. I didn't tell Rachel. Didn't tell anyone. When I landed at Boise Airport, it was 6:45 p.m. I didn't go home. I went straight to Victor's office. He'd already pulled county records, tracked the mortgage paperwork, and checked Rachel's work history. "You ready?" he asked, sliding a thick manila folder across the desk. I opened it. Inside, a motion to reverse property division, a petition for financial fraud investigation, and a restraining order request. All based on Jeremy's overnight stays, her unauthorized withdrawals, and the forged refinancing application she'd attempted last month, without my knowledge. She tried to refinance the house. I asked, eyebrows raised. Victor nodded. Didn't go through. They flagged it. But it's enough. We submitted everything to the county clerk's office the next morning. Then we went to the sheriff's department and filed for formal service of divorce papers, not by mail, but in person, during business hours, at her job. I wanted it to be public. I wanted it to be precise. I wanted it to be unforgettable. Rachel had detonated our marriage with an email. I was going to respond with a legal airstrike. April 24, 2024. 10:02 a.m. That's when I got the confirmation text from Victor. It's done. Rachel's been served, in the middle of her morning meeting. I almost felt sorry for the junior associates at the dental office. Rachel wasn't just a receptionist anymore. She had recently been promoted to office manager, fancy new title, same manipulation. Every Wednesday, she ran a morning meeting in the glass conference room overlooking the main floor. It was her throne. Her moment to shine. And now, her public humiliation. According to Victor's contact in the building, the process server entered at exactly 9:56 a.m. He walked right up to the conference room, knocked twice, opened the glass door like he owned the place, and said clearly, "Rachel Briggs? You've been officially served with divorce papers. Have a great day." He handed her the envelope and left. Just like that. She froze. For a second, no one spoke. Then someone gasped. Another whispered, "Oh my God." Rachel's hands shook as she opened the envelope. A few minutes later, she stormed out of the room, red-faced, not saying a word. Back at Victor's office, I toasted with a black coffee. It wasn't bourbon, but it tasted like justice. That night, I waited for the call. It came at 7:38 p.m. Her number. I picked up, let the silence hang for a beat, then said, "Evening." She launched right in. "You blindsided me." "At work? In front of everyone?" I kept my voice steady. "You mean like how you blindsided me, with a PDF from across the world? I didn't deserve this." "No, you deserved worse. But I'm not done yet." She fell silent. Then her tone shifted. "Okay, look, maybe we didn't handle things right. But can we at least talk like adults?" There it was again, that phrase. The same line she used in the subject of the divorce email, "Let's be adults about this." I almost laughed. Adults? Rachel, adults don't empty joint accounts and move boyfriends into houses while their spouses are dodging IEDs in Kandahar. Her voice cracked a little. I was lonely. I didn't bite. You were calculating. She tried again. Can we meet in person? I paused. Sure. Tomorrow. 3 p.m. At Victor's office. Click. The next day, she arrived wearing her lawyer face. Perfect blouse, tidy ponytail, that fake calm she used to pull when she was lying about how much she spent on credit cards. Victor sat beside me. His expression? Stone. Rachel, he nodded. Thanks for coming. She looked at me. So what is all this? I opened the file folder. Let's talk about the refinance you attempted without my consent. Her eyes narrowed. Wait, how did you even? Victor interrupted. We obtained the bank logs. You listed Jeremy as a co-signer on a refinance against a VA-backed loan. That's federal fraud. Her face drained. That's not, I didn't know, he said it was fine. Didn't know. I snapped. You forged my signature, Rachel. She stammered, reaching for excuses. He handled the paperwork, I didn't even. Victor laid down another document. Your boyfriend, Jeremy Ryan, has 2 prior arrests. One for DUI, one for petty fraud. Did you know that? Silence. Victor continued, cool and calm, that's going to matter. Especially when we involve the FBI for tampering with a federally secured mortgage. Oh, and by the way, he pulled out a still shot from the security camera, Jeremy holding my coffee mug, standing barefoot in my kitchen. She flinched. I leaned forward. You made a mess, Rachel. A big one. And I've spent the past 3 months sweeping it into a pile. This, today, is the first spark. Watch it burn. She snapped. You're doing this for revenge. No. I'm doing this for accountability. If it feels like revenge, maybe ask yourself why. Victor stood up. You'll be hearing from us again soon. Have your new boyfriend pay your legal bills. As she stood to leave, Rachel looked at me one last time. But I didn't see a wife anymore. I saw a stranger who gambled a family for a fling, and lost everything. She left the office, heels clacking like a drumbeat toward her new reality. Victor patted my shoulder. Nice job, Sergeant. I looked down at the folder of evidence. Not done yet, counselor. She took everything from me, but I still have one thing left. What's that? Victor asked. I smiled coldly. My next move. April 25, 2024, 7:45 a.m. The sun broke over the mountains, painting the sky behind Spokane with a soft orange hue, but all I could feel was steel in my gut. I stood at the county recorder's office, waiting for the clerk to return with confirmation. 10 minutes later, she came back with a stamped and recorded notice of title freeze on the house. Until a fraud investigation was resolved, no sale, refinance, or transfer of the property could legally proceed. Not without me. Rachel thought the house was her trump card, she had no idea it was already off the table. By 10 a.m., I was sitting across from Agent Patel again at the Spokane FBI field office. A new printout of emails and financial records sat between us. Jeremy Ryan's been busy, she said, flipping pages. Multiple deposits from women with military spouses. You were the 5th case, maybe not the first, but the one with the cleanest paper trail. I nodded. He's done this before. For times that we've found so far. The others didn't notice until it was too late. You're the only one who caught it early and documented everything. We went over timelines, communications, forged signatures. I handed over the last batch of footage, Jeremy and Daniel Spencer discussing a buyer and offering a sale price for my house like it was a used car on Craigslist. I want him gone, I said simply. Agent Patel looked up. We're almost there. That night, I sat on the back porch of the cheap motel I'd been staying in. The stars were out, clear above the pines, but my mind was restless. I picked up my phone and scrolled through old photos, me and Rachel at Glacier National Park in 2017, smiling like fools, the living room decorated for Christmas with our dog Scout in a Santa hat, a photo of the kitchen I renovated with my own hands. It wasn't just betrayal I felt anymore, it was mourning. For a version of my life that had been real once. Before it soured. Then my phone vibrated. Rachel. A simple text. Nathan. Please. I know I made mistakes. But we need to talk. You can't just erase 13 years. I stared at it. She was right about one thing, I wasn't trying to erase it. I was burning it down, because she already had. April 26, 2024, 2:30 p.m. I walked into Victor's office with a USB drive and 2 manila folders. Time to drop the hammer, I said. Victor smiled. Let's go. We submitted formal affidavits to the county fraud unit. Video evidence, signed statements, financial records, all attached to a comprehensive report. Jeremy Ryan and Daniel Spencer's names were all over it. Next stop, the Washington State Department of Licensing. Jeremy had been driving my truck, on a suspended license. And I had every reason to believe he was committing insurance fraud too, listing it under his own policy while using my registration. Victor filed complaints with the insurance company, reported the vehicle use, and pushed for civil penalties. The DOL can suspend both of their licenses, Victor explained. Even revoke them. If we get traction, Spencer loses his real estate license. Game over. But the best part came that evening. At exactly 5:17 p.m., Victor received a call from an unknown number. It was Laura Ryan, Jeremy's estranged wife. I just got a message from an FBI agent. I had no idea what he was doing, she said. He told me to call Victor Briggs if I wanted the truth. Victor put her on speakerphone. Laura, I said. Jeremy's been using you, just like he's been using every woman whose husband is deployed. I'm sorry you're part of this. But we're going to stop him. There was silence on the other end. Then her voice, sharper now. Tell me what to do. By the end of the week, everything had moved into motion. A restraining order filed against Jeremy. A civil lawsuit for fraudulent property transactions, in coordination with other victims. An anonymous tip sent to the Washington State Board of Dentistry regarding prescription pad theft at Rachel's clinic. And most importantly, Laura had handed over access to her financial records, showing that Jeremy had been funneling money through her accounts too. He wasn't just a cheater or a grifter, he was a career-level con man. And now? He had no escape routes left. April 28, 2024, 10 a.m. The morning was deceptively calm. Birds chirped outside the FBI field office while inside, Agent Patel walked me through the next steps like a chess master laying out her final moves. We're serving simultaneous warrants this afternoon, she said, tapping a digital folder. Jeremy Ryan, Daniel Spencer, federal charges for conspiracy, wire fraud, and identity theft. If your wife is involved, she'll be named as a co-conspirator. I took a deep breath. You're sure it'll stick? We've got the security camera footage, the forged refinance documents, the intercepted emails, Spencer's real estate wire transfers, Laura Ryan's testimony, and Jeremy's previous convictions. Yeah, it'll stick. I nodded slowly. The wheels of justice were finally grinding forward, and this time, I wasn't just along for the ride. 1:40 p.m., Becky Street, Spokane, Washington. I parked 4 houses down, hidden behind a neighbor's hedge. From my angle, I had a clear line of sight to the house Rachel and I had once built our future inside. Now it was the epicenter of a federal storm. At exactly 2 p.m., two unmarked black SUVs pulled up. 4 agents exited, coordinated, calm. At 2:03, Spencer opened the door, still holding a Starbucks cup. By 2:04, he was face down on the porch, cuffs around his wrists. Jeremy wasn't home. But the agents entered the property anyway. At 2:15, Becky's silver sedan rolled into the driveway. I watched her pause at the sight of the SUVs. Then panic. She scrambled for her phone. I imagined her fingers frantically texting Jeremy, but it was too late. An agent approached. She opened her door, slowly. Her face was pale, and she was visibly shaking. A moment later, she was seated on the front step, hands in her lap. No cuffs. Not yet. 6:30 p.m., Victor's office. Jeremy was arrested at his mother's house an hour later. His mugshot hit the county database by sundown. Spencer was already cooperating, facing too much time to play tough guy. And Rachel? She was under investigation. She's claiming ignorance, Victor said, eyes on his tablet. But the FBI's tech team just pulled emails from her cloud account. She forwarded refinance documents with your forged signature. Twice. Game over, I muttered. Victor nodded. Now it's about consequences. Financial restitution, property recovery, and determining whether she's looking at charges or just civil penalties. I leaned back in the chair. For the first time in months, I felt something close to relief. April 30th, 2024, 9 a.m., Spokane County Courthouse. I sat across from Rachel in mediation. No lawyers. Just us and a court officer. She looked ruined. Eyes hollow. Makeup smeared. No smug smile, no sarcasm. Just a woman with nothing left to spin. She didn't speak for a full minute. Then finally, Nathan. I made mistakes. I didn't respond. I believed him. I thought you were hiding money. That you didn't love me anymore. That you were gone too much. You forged my name. You drained our account. You let a stranger live in our home and walk our dog while I was deployed in a war zone. Her voice cracked. I know. And I can't take it back. But if there's any way you'll let me. There isn't. She didn't cry. She just nodded. The court officer pushed the agreement forward. Full ownership of the house reverted to me. No spousal support. No claim on my pension. And her signed confession, already submitted to the FBI. I signed. So did she. Then she stood, walked to the door, paused, but didn't look back. And that was it. The final chapter. The last page. And all I felt was free. May 3rd, 2024, 11 a.m. The news hit the local paper like a slow-burning wildfire. Real estate fraud ring exposed. FBI arrests 2 in multi-state scheme targeting deployed military members. They didn't name Becky. But everyone in Spokane who'd followed the case knew exactly who the wife of one of the victims was. Her photo wasn't printed, but her reputation. That was shredded into headlines and passed around every coffee shop and social media group within 20 miles. She didn't call. Not this time. Instead, she emailed. Subject, just one thing. Nathan. I know you won't believe me, but I need to say this. I didn't know what Jeremy was really doing. Not at first. Maybe I chose not to see it. But I never meant to hurt you like this. If you ever find it in your heart to talk again, not about us, just as people, I'd like that. I'll understand if you don't respond. Rachel. I didn't. I stared at the screen for a long time, then archived the email and went outside. Scout, the German Shepherd pup I'd adopted 2 weeks ago, bounded up the porch steps like a missile. We walked the trail behind my rental. Wind rustled through the trees. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like the air was pressing down on me. May 5, 2024, 6:45 p.m. The FBI invited me to a follow-up debrief. They'd closed their investigation into Jeremy and Spencer with full confessions, and had identified 7 other affected service members. My testimony had helped connect the dots between states and financial institutions. You didn't just protect yourself, Agent Patel told me, you helped take down a network. I didn't smile. I wasn't proud or triumphant. But I was, steady. May 7, 2024, 9:20 a.m. James called from his office with the final update. It's all over, he said. You own the house free and clear. Your pension is untouched. Becky has forfeited all claims and agreed to restitution. And, get this, Jeremy took a plea deal. 6 years minimum. I let out a long breath. And Rachel? She's moved out of town. Quietly. New job, new zip code. My guess? Trying to disappear. Good, I said. James paused. You sure you're okay, man? I'm not okay, I said honestly. But I'm better. And getting better is enough for now. May 12, 2024, 10:15 p.m. I found the letter on my porch. Not in the mailbox. Not handed over. Left carefully, like it was meant to be found but not forced on me. It was Rachel's handwriting. There was no apology inside. Not another plea. Just one paragraph. I remember when you built this porch, bare hands, heat, splinters. You said it was for our kids one day. I didn't realize then how many things we build hoping someone will still be there when it's finished. That night, I burned the letter in the fire pit out back. Not out of anger. Out of release. She wasn't there when it was finished. But I was. And I still am. May 18, 2024, 7:35 a.m. It had been over 2 weeks since I officially closed the chapter on my marriage. Spokane was in my rearview mirror, and I had moved into a quiet rental cabin just outside of Missoula, Montana. It wasn't much, 2 bedrooms, wooden siding, no Wi-Fi unless I tethered my phone, but for the first time in years, the silence felt like safety, not loneliness. Scout, my German Shepherd, had quickly claimed the front porch as his throne. Every morning, he sat there like a sentry, ears up, watching the deer move cautiously through the woods. I sipped coffee beside him and let my thoughts drift like the mist curling over the mountains. I wasn't ready to call this healing. But it was something. I spent my days doing odd carpentry jobs around town. The folks in Missoula didn't ask too many questions. A few assumed I was just another vet looking for peace. They weren't wrong. I helped rebuild a barn roof, repaired fences, fixed up an old church's pews. The wood didn't lie. You measured, you cut, you joined. If it didn't fit, it was on you. Simple. Honest. I didn't talk about Becky. I didn't tell anyone how close I'd come to losing everything. I didn't mention the FBI, the house, or the way her boyfriend wore my sweatshirt while walking my dog. It wasn't denial. It was just, over. And I wasn't dragging that wreckage into my new life. May 21, 2024, 4 p.m. I got a package in the mail. No return address. But I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was from Becky. Inside was a small jewelry box. For a second, my heart stopped. Was this some emotional manipulation? Some last-ditch plea? But when I opened it, all I found was the gold wedding band I'd taken off and left in our bedroom drawer the day I received her email from Kandahar. There was a sticky note folded inside. I don't deserve to keep it. That was it. No signature. No tears. Just quiet surrender. I threw the ring in the bottom drawer of my toolbox, under the rusted bolts and extra nails. I wasn't sure why I didn't toss it out. Maybe part of me wanted to remember how something so small could weigh down a whole life. May 24, 2024, 6:45 p.m. James called again. You might want to know, he said, the FBI made another arrest. Another one? I asked. A woman in Texas. Similar situation. Husband deployed. Same names involved, Jeremy and Spencer. But this one's different. How so? This time the wife turned them in before it got too far. She saw the signs, because she read about your case. I was stunned silent. She said she found the article online. Recognized the pattern. She's pressing charges. Said your story gave her the push she needed. My fingers gripped the phone tighter. You're telling me we might have stopped this from happening to someone else? More than one, James replied. FBI says your case blew it open. They're looking into 7 more households now. I stared out at the Montana twilight, feeling something heavy lift from my chest. For the first time in months, I felt purpose, not just survival, not just revenge, but purpose. May 30, 2024, 9 a.m. I got a letter in the mail. Not from Becky. From the woman in Texas. You don't know me, but I wanted to say thank you. You saved my home, my kids, my sanity. I was being groomed into believing my husband was the problem. You helped me see clearly. If you're ever in Fort Worth, coffee's on me. There was no romantic tone. No flirtation. Just gratitude. And that made it matter even more. I pinned it to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a dog bone, Scout's favorite treat. Every morning since, I've read it like a prayer. Not for her. Not for Becky. But for myself. To remember that walking away from destruction doesn't make you weak. It makes you free. June 2, 2024, 2:45 p.m. I wasn't expecting another call from Agent Patel. But when her name flashed across my phone screen, I stepped out of the hardware store in town and answered immediately. We got a conviction, she said without preamble. Jeremy Ryan pled guilty this morning in federal court, 7 charges, including wire fraud and conspiracy to defraud military families. He'll serve 10 years minimum. I sat down on a bench outside, the Montana breeze tugging at the brim of my cap. And Spencer? Still fighting, but the evidence is stacked. His trial's in August. But that's not why I called. I waited. 2 of the families involved in our case asked to contact you directly. Not reporters. Just people. Victims. You helped them. They want to say thank you. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Then I simply asked, you can pass along my P.O. box. It wasn't pride. It wasn't closure. It was something more honest, quiet validation. Proof that what I went through, what I lost, wasn't meaningless. June 6, 2024, 8:30 a.m. Scout and I were walking along the creek when a tan envelope showed up in my mailbox. Inside, a photo. A family of 4, 2 young boys and a couple in their 30s, smiling in front of their reclaimed home in El Paso, Texas. Handwritten note on the back. He almost sold our house while my husband was deployed. Because of you, I saw the signs. I stopped it. We're still together. Our boys have a backyard again. Thank you, Nathan. My hands shook slightly as I slid the photo into a small wooden frame and placed it above the fireplace. I'd once told James the first wasn't trying to be anyone's hero. Maybe I didn't have to try. June 9, 2024, 6 p.m. I heard Becky was living in a rental in Oregon. No job at her old clinic. The dental board had opened an investigation into the stolen prescription pads. She wasn't charged, but her license was suspended. She sent one final email. I know you won't write back. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, not for losing you, but for betraying the person you were. I don't expect forgiveness. Just hope you find something better. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry. But because it was over. She had her path. I had mine. And mine was finally clear. June 12, 2024, 7:12 p.m. Scout barked, running to the front porch. A truck I didn't recognize rolled down the gravel road. James stepped out. What are you doing here? I asked, surprised. Vacation, he said. And maybe, thinking about building a cabin like yours. We sat outside with 2 cold beers as the sun sank behind the trees. I talked to a woman in Arizona, James said. Her husband was Navy. Spencer tried to run the scam again, except she'd read your story online. She stopped it. She did. I leaned back in my chair, heart calm. That makes 3 families we know of, James added. I nodded. One day, they'll forget my name, I said. But maybe they'll remember the lesson. June 14, 2024, 5:03 p.m. I was sorting through a stack of mail when I noticed an envelope that stood out, not because of the handwriting or the stamps, but because of the weight of it. Heavy. Like it held something more than paper. It was from my old commanding officer, Colonel David Langston, retired now, living somewhere in Colorado. I hadn't heard from him in over 2 years, not since my last deployment. I tore it open carefully, confused. Inside was a letter and a photograph. The photo was of me, 13 years ago, shaking hands with a group of Afghan civilians after helping rebuild a school in a remote village. I didn't even remember the photo being taken. But I remembered the moment. The pride. The purpose. The letter was short. Typed. No fluff. Nathan. I heard about what happened, your marriage, the case, everything. I won't pretend to know what it felt like. But I know what kind of man you are. You always finished the job. You always led with integrity. What you did back then in that village, that mattered. And what you did here, exposing that fraud, it mattered too. This world breaks men like us, but you bent it back. I'm proud of you. Colonel D. Langston. I read the letter 3 times. Then I just sat there, staring at that photo like it was a window into a version of me I hadn't seen in a long time. For months, I'd focused on revenge. On justice. On making sure Becky and Jeremy and Spencer couldn't destroy anyone else's life the way they tried to destroy mine. But that letter reminded me of something I'd almost forgotten. Who I was before the betrayal. Who I could still be. June 17, 2024, 9:21 a.m. I stood on the edge of my property, Scout at my side, wind rustling through the tall pines. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about Becky. Or the fraud. Or even the FBI case. I was thinking about the school in that dusty village, and the way those kids smiled when they walked through the new doors. How I felt when I handed them that first stack of notebooks. That was purpose. That night, I sat down at my laptop and drafted a proposal, something I'd been toying with for a while but never committed to. A non-profit aimed at helping military families detect financial abuse, especially during deployments. Legal aid, financial consulting, even tech support for digital security. I called it Vigilant Homefront. I sent the first version to James and 2 other veteran buddies I trusted. By midnight, all 3 had responded with a yes. We were going to build something. Not just to fight back. But to help others stand strong before they ever need to. July 2, 2024, 6:47 a.m. It was early when I stepped out onto the front porch of my new place. Scout trotted beside me, tail wagging as he sniffed the morning air. The cabin still smelled of fresh pine and varnish, barely lived in, like it hadn't decided whether I truly belonged there yet. I took a sip of hot coffee, watching the fog lift off the small creek behind the property. I wasn't thinking about Becky. I wasn't thinking about Jeremy or Spencer or even the investigation. For the first time in what felt like years, my head was clear. I'd been offered a spot on a veterans panel for a regional conference in Helena, to speak about financial abuse, post-deployment reintegration, and building resilience. I hadn't said yes yet, but I was leaning toward it. The idea of telling my story not out of anger, but out of purpose, seemed healing. Later that day, James called. "You got another letter." "From who?" "A woman named Elizabeth Galloway. Says her husband was stationed in Germany when the same real estate scam was pulled on her. She only got out of it because of an article quoting your name." I sat down hard on my porch steps, Scout curling up beside me. "She sent a donation to Vigilant Homefront," James added. $5,000. I blinked. 5? Yeah. Said if it weren't for you, she'd have lost everything. I hung up and just sat there for a while, letting the weight of that hit me. All the planning. The silence. The watching and waiting. It hadn't just saved me. It was saving others, too. July 9, 2024, 10:14 p.m. The power went out during a summer storm, and I lit a few candles around the living room. The storm raged outside, wind howling through the trees, rain pelting the tin roof like gunfire. Scout lay curled at my feet, unbothered, while I sat with an old notebook in my lap. I flipped through pages of sketches, cabin expansion ideas, notes about veteran support programs, even a few rough drafts for a book. It wasn't revenge that kept me going now. It was legacy. Not the kind you leave behind in a bank account, but the kind etched into the world through actions, through rebuilding what was broken. At some point, I realized, I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living again.